When the Lumiere brothers invented cinema in 1895, France had already been shaping its colonial empire for several decades. In the old port of Marseille, cameraman Alexandre Promotes set sail with his new camera bound for his French colonies. The filmmaker imagined bringing back reels of film from his voyage filled with exotic dreams and national grandeur. But what the images of this pioneer of cinematography do not show is that this territorial expansion was everywhere the result of particularly violent military conquest. Because wherever France tried to plant its flag, it had to face fierce resistance. Arriving on the other side of the Mediterranean, Alexandre Promote discovers the port of Algiers shaped by years of French presence. Promote captures for us the astonishing place of government. A colonial mix so typical that it rubs shoulders with local religious tradition and the Republic's passion for the statues of its military glories. The operator is fascinated by the exotic Mediterranean landscape that unfolds before him. Through Promeo's lens, the capital of Algeria appears peaceful, of course, as the French settled here 60 years ago. However, the conquest of Algeria was a long and deadly war. The conquest began in June 1830 when the French fleet bombarded Algiers at the request of King Charles X, under the pretext of freeing Christian slaves. In reality, the king wanted to restore the splendor of his reign and, above all, to favor the shipowners of the port of Marseille. Thanks to the paintings of Ross Vernet, who immortalized this conquest, we can measure the violence of a campaign led by Marshal Buat. Buat, an ardent monarchist, had chosen a merciless war. His troops were ordered to destroy everything in their path. Pillage, rape, destruction. The country was soon ablaze with blood. A scorched earth policy in an attempt to overcome the fierce resistance organized by Emir Abdelkader, who had brought together several Algerian tribes. Faced with the Muslim theologian's determination, Buat soon lacked troops and had to recruit auxiliaries from the French army on the spot. Horsemen were then chosen from tribes hostile to Abdelkader, who formed the first regiment of this Algerian country. A crucial reinforcement for Bugeaud's troops, who ended up gaining the upper hand. The first hero of an Algerian nation that did not yet exist, but whose spirit he had breathed life into. Abdelkader was sentenced to exile in 1847, as were most of the warlords who would rise up against France. It would take several decades for the French soldiers to finally conquer the entire territory from Oran to Constantine. A bloody conquest that would claim several 100,000 victims on the Algerian side. And so it was that France turned Algeria into a settlement colony, expanding into the country's main cities, such as here in Tlemcen. The first to settle were Parisian workers from national factories who had been made unemployed and encouraged to try their luck in Algeria. Then came the peasants from the French countryside, Spain, or Italy, who, in an attempt to offer their children a decent future, responded to the call of the French government, as did thousands of Alsatians fleeing the German occupation after 1870. These ordinary, hard-working families discovered the Saharan Western world with its stagecoaches and military escorts as they ventured inland. Often, upon their arrival, these European emigrants had only what the government was willing to offer them. This is what this peasant from Franche-Comté recounts. When we arrived, they gave us a house, but there was no bread or water. We only had a blanket, an empty straw mattress, and a sheet to sleep 12 people. Then we were given our concessions, which were not as pleasant as we had thought. First, there was land that the colonists were determined to fertilize and which had often been requisitioned by the administration, to the detriment of the Algerians. Soon, entire villages were built according to plans provided by the military engineers. A rectangle 500 meters long, pierced by 7 streets aligned and intersecting at right angles, with several spaces reserved for the school, the town hall and the Catholic Church. While this colonization was unanimously supported in Paris, some voices tried to speak out against this claim to want to reproduce France in miniature here. This was the case of the journalist and writer Guy Passant, who was surprised by this transformation of the city of Algiers when he was sent on a report by the newspaper Le Gaulois. From the very first steps, one is embarrassed. It is we who seem like barbarians in the midst of these barbarians, but who are at home and to whom the centuries have taught customs whose meaning we seem not yet to have understood. Our Parisian houses, our customs that they want to impose, our customs, all this shocks on this soil like gross errors of art, wisdom, and understanding. Everything we do here seems a challenge to the land itself. This astonishing colonial Algeria that Moton criticizes.